Hi everyone, it's Trevor from Coiltek here, and today we're going to do a tech talk on our new 18-inch MYTHTEK coil. This is the big beast here. It suits the manticore detector. We're very proud to release this coil. We've had it out in testing for several months, so we can get some really good feedback on how it performs on the ground. So you can hit us up through our socials, our Coiltek on Facebook and through Instagram. We also now have a Tek Talk account as well with some reels going up on there. And also you can hit us up through our website anytime to ask any questions. So this new 18-inch MYTHTEK coil suits a manticore detector. I've got two fantastic gentlemen that are going to join me tonight. They've been part of our testing crew that has tested this coil out in the field before its release, and they've definitely helped us get some really good feedback on the performance, how the coil's going, making sure that we've got everything right for release. So let me get both of these gentlemen in. The first gentleman is Paul Cointector and Guy the Gold Rush guy. They're both from Victoria in Australia. There they are. There's Paul. How you going, Paul?
G'day, Trev. How are you, mate?
Very good. Thanks for joining me tonight. And Guy's just popped in there. There he is. How you going, Guy?
Yes, I'm here. G'day, fellas.
G'day, Guy.
So for the viewers out there, I've done a couple of sessions with Guy, and you would have seen our talks before on the Knox coil and also the Gold Hawk. And Paul has been running and has been putting videos out already on the 18-inch MYTHTEK, but has used our coils extensively and quite a lot on the Equinox detectors that he runs as well, and also doing some more GPX stuff, I believe, as well, Paul.
Yeah, correct.
Gold
Yes.
Hawks.
Yeah, got the little 9-inch, so I'm keen to take that out with the 6000. So
yeah, the 9-inch has been great, but we'll do a Gold Hawk talk another time. But for today, we're definitely going to talk about this 18-inch. And probably the first thing that I wanted to ask both of you, and we really appreciate all your feedback and information that you're getting out there. But one of the first things is your first impression, Paul. What was your first impression of the 18-inch coil when that first rocked up to use that?
yeah, right. Well, I'm always impressed with the quality of the Coiltek coils. Now I'll just see if I can. I just want to. I've got the actual coil here with me, so I'm just going to pull it up here. One of the things I was really impressed with is you've reinforced the ears.
Yes, yeah, the tombstone mount. Yeah, that's right. Yep.
I like it because quite often they had problems, with these sort of being a bit, I guess,
Flimsy
fragile
or fragile. Yeah.
and breaking. And so that's as solid as. And when you pick the coil up, you just know that it's, to break something like that, you're going to have to give it a decent old belt. So that was one of the things, and just the overall build quality. It's fantastic. I've used a lot of Coiltek coils, and I've actually never even broke one. So I've broke shafts and things like that before on my machine, but not a coil. So well done, mate.
Good. Yeah, we certainly put a little bit of extra into making sure that the coils are very robust and can take a lot of work out there because they do cop a bit of a brunt. How about you, Guy? When you first received the coil, and obviously it's also in the similar housings to the Knox coil that we've got, but with that new tombstone design and how it felt for you, the aesthetics, the weight. What do you think of all of that?
Yeah, I suppose one of my key things that I do is I like to go out to, if you like, pasture or old gold rush towns that are typically in paddocks and so forth. So one of the big things I look for is the ability to actually move through, grass, even thicker grass, and it just bulldozes through that. It's really, really good at doing that. And also the flip side of that is some of the larger coils previously, if you go back to some of the CTXs and some of the earlier models, the bigger ones will tend to false on when you go through grass and that. But this is it's just a beast. It really, really is quite stable, and it works excellent. Massive depth, and the the big thing is, right, we've got this big coil, and we've got this such a powerful machine like the Manticore that
Mm.
puts out this power, and it's fully utilized with this coil.
Yeah, definitely that was one thing that we knew that the Manticore had was that extra power, and coupled with the big coil, yeah, like you're saying, that depth becomes crazy. But also, on those smaller targets too, that means that you're not missing a lot of those smaller ones at better depths as well. So, um,
Yeah, I think that's a really, really good point, and you've probably seen with one of the videos that I've put out. So finding some of the smallest silver coins, little threepences and so forth. So with a lot of people, especially with a powerful coil like a machine like the Manticore, when you're looking for that separation, a lot of people think, well, you've got to have the smaller coils to get that separation, but even with a big 18-inch MYTHTEK, the separation is still fantastic and able to pick out those small targets
mm,
in relatively trashy ground. So these are in some of these were in parks where there's significant EMI and other sources really trying to impact on the capabilities of the machine, but it just went right through that. So I was very, very impressed with that.
and when you first, it's a bigger coil, so naturally you have more mass and everything with a bigger coil. Obviously, weight is a big concern for a lot of people swinging detectors out there, which we completely understand. But how did you feel the coil, Paul, on the shaft when you started to use it there, and the weight side of things? How did it go for you?
Yeah, well, you definitely notice the bigger coil, and that's just the nature of a big coil, I suppose. It's going to
Mm,
actually be heavier, but I've been using the 15 a lot, so I'm sort of used to the bigger coils. After a while, it does, maybe 2 or 3 hours, you can feel like you need a break, and even some people perhaps might want to run
yep.
a bungee cord just to relieve the. But what I would say was just go slow and take a few more breaks and just sort of manage the extra. It's nothing too out of control. I find it fine, but other
Mm.
people, like I say, might want to use a bungee cord or some sort of harness just to take that pressure off their arm or shoulder a little bit. But
There's
yeah,
plenty of bungee cords out on the market for
there
people to
is.
try.
There is, yeah, that's correct. But in going back to what Guy says too, a lot of the paddocks and fields that we detect in the northeast Victoria here, we might have a paddock that's 40 or 50 acres, and you want to sort of try and go
Mhm.
through the paddock and find some noisy areas. So, as Guy said, that thing you can really sort of work through the little bit longer grass, and you're still getting that depth,
Mm.
but you're covering a lot more ground quicker. So.
And
It's
that's a
fantastic.
big thing for, a lot of those open fields, where to use that coil, where's it best suited? And
Yeah,
you're
that's
saying,
right.
the parks, the fields, is there any other areas that you guys think would be very well suited to this coil?
Well, I actually did take it to the beach. I was on holidays. I
Yeah,
got washed.
nice.
I got washed out a little bit, so the weather turned really bad actually. But I did get a chance to run the Manticore on the beach. And that thing, I was really surprised. It ran super smooth. I had hardly any EMI or any sort of other noises coming through with the hot ground and the sand. So it was really, really stable. And deep. I was digging deep holes that day, so I didn't do a
Hopefully
lot of
they weren't all
filming.
ring pulls.
Well, I did find my fair share of them,
Yes. Good.
and so but it definitely does run really smooth on the beach. That's one thing I found. So I enjoyed using it on the beach too. That was great.
What about you guys? What about parks? We all make sure that we refill our holes and look after our parks, don't leave them messier than what we found them. But, how would you find this on a park or that sort of field or anything like that?
Yeah, so one of the videos that's out, so you can have a look at that on the Gold Rush guide. So there's one on the MYTHTEK hitting some of the parks. So one of those parks is to give people an idea, probably within 100 meters of where I was detecting, there was major tram routes, major train routes, and there's also they've done a significant amount of putting underground power there. So in terms of EMI, it's a bit of a hotbed that area, and I could still easily run it up to 28 without it sort of just chattering away in the background, which it can do um, in some circumstances. So that to me was really really good, and still got all the great depth and the other
Mm.
performance that sort of comes with that.
And talking about, those areas that you go to, Guy, one of the things with these coils for the Manticore, the MYTHTEK and Knox and Gold Hawk is we have the Minelab approved. So that means that they actually run through their engineers. Minelab don't just approve a coil that we make just for the sake of it. It definitely goes through their engineering and testing. And Guy, you were involved with that as well, talking to the Minelab engineers about how you found the coil out in the fields. So,
So I think what a lot of people think, oh, that mine they've just put a sticker on it and Bob your uncle sort of thing. So it's just not that way. There's a lot of toing and froing. So I'm talking with the senior engineers there because they do all of their tests. So they give this as good a workout as we do.
mm,
And they've got test grounds and do other sort of tests on the coil, especially around how it performs using some of the different multi frequencies and all that kind of stuff. So there's not only our QA, and we've obviously got an accredited ISO certification at Coiltek, but the fact that MindLab go through all of that, and
mm,
as I said, we have a very open dialogue. So they'll say, "Can you test this on it?" And we're sharing videos of how we're testing this and what and how it actually reacted in different circumstances. So it's really about sort of sharing our experience with the MindLab engineers to ensure that the product is the best that we can put out on the market.
yeah, I remember having a text message communication with you about, a noise concern with wet grass. And next minute, I get a video back from Guy at night time running through wet grass at full flat out, going, "Look, it's not doing anything." So, it just means that, people can trust the fact that this coil is a plug and play. There's no other things you need to do. You don't need to reset your detector. You can just unplug a coil and plug a new one in. There's been many talks over many years about resetting your detector. If I plug a new coil in, you shouldn't have to. I don't believe you guys have ever done that or do that regularly, because your settings are in there. You don't want to reset those. So, super important in that regards for people's, that can trust the brand Coiltek, and also with Minelab as well, that are putting their name on it. We do go through all of that knock testing, fatigue testing, sensitivity, depth, noise levels, wet grass, salty water. So everything's got to be checked to make sure that it gets that approval. So when it gets in Paul Cointector's hands, he knows he's got a product that he can rely on out there. That's for sure.
Yeah, correct. That's right. And in going what Guy was sort of touching on a little bit there, we've got a lot of electric fences in our region where, farmers and the fields we get permissions on.
Yeah.
And I ran the 18 right up close to an electric fence thinking I was going to get a lot of noise. I think I've done a little video of it too. And it was as quiet as a mouse. You could hear the tick of the fence every now and then, but it was super smooth. And I was really impressed thinking it's going to really chatter. And I was running a high sensitivity round about 28, even to 30, and it still didn't affect it. So super impressed with that too.
So going on with that, like, what can people expect going from a standard size coil to an 18-inch Paul? Like, you've used multiple different sizes of coils and multiple different machines. And when you go from a smaller coil to a larger coil, there's got to be some expectations around noise levels and that. What would you expect, and give any advice around that?
Yeah, sure. I guess you're always going to get a little bit more interference because just the nature of having a big coil on your machine. Yeah, it's a little bit like R2D2. You've got all these little noises in your head.
Yeah.
But when you go over a target, you're not going to miss it. And Guy will probably agree, especially if you go over a nice silver or you've hit on an old English penny. Especially with the Manticore too, because it's such a powerful machine. It just leaps out at you. You can tell the difference between a bit of ground noise and interference and a good target. So we just listen in for the decent repeatable ones, even the lower lower tones, and that's what we do. We dig everything where we are because you never know, it's going to be a gold sovereign one day. The lower conductors or lower
lower numbers.
Yeah, exactly. So, but no, impressed, really impressed. It's been great. So.
And Guy, you know, in relation to the target IDs and things like that, how have you found that the coils responded compared to standard coil, you know, with the target IDs and discrimination?
Yeah, it's spot on, Trevor. It's actually it's probably of the larger coils that I've tested over the years. I was very impressed. So one of the tests that I'll do is I'll run it on the whole suite of different coils for the Manticore and test that because there's nothing. It's frustrating for a new user to put another coil on and go, well, especially people that like for in Australia where you might have patterns, you're only looking for $1 and $2 coins,
Yeah,
and that changes. So and then you have
correct.
to go in and change settings on the Manticore. So yeah, it's one of the tests that we do, and yeah, it really, as I said, it's spot on. Like you could run a side by side test with like the new 9 inch that's come out from MindLab,
Yep.
and it will give you this exact same number.
Yeah, that's great. And that's you know, part of the programming calibration that we do in-house here on the technical side when we're building all the coils. They run through a MindLab program. So it gets preloaded with a bunch of information, but also we need to make sure that the specs are right within the coil windings as well, which helps identification and you know, run the frequencies that these coils, these detectors are now running. So you know, the pulse rates and the power that this thing has, it's definitely part of the equation is the coil, and we have to get the windings right for that to work properly. So super important for, you know, like you're saying, Guy, and Paul would know, you know, you plug a new coil in, you want it to respond very similarly. And, you know, I have heard both of you and watched both of your videos, and you can hear that the coil does chatter a little bit. And when you're running around, you know, and swinging along, you do get a bit of noise. But with training, I guess people can sort of decipher those solid targets better. You know, how long does it sort of take to sort of get used to a new coil, like a large coil like this?
Oh yeah, exactly. I'll jump in. I think with detecting, it's just time with your machine, getting to know your machine inside out, and the more time and hours you can put onto it, obviously, the better you get. Quite often, when we're in those big paddocks and we're getting a lot of noises, you can basically, not always, but pretty much, null out those ground noises before you might hit on a good target. So yeah, so basically, you sort of get used to it. And I would highly suggest that people just spend time with their machine,
Mm.
get as much time on the ground with it, and that's where you really learn. The coil, you can swap out any coil, but once you know your machine, then everything else falls into place, I feel.
Yeah,
So
that's a good point. What about
yeah.
you, Guy? Do you do same sort of thing?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's interesting. While the one of the strengths of the Manticore is to have a look at the two-dimensional screen that gives you a lot of information about the target, whether it's sort of the beautiful little circles that we're looking for right on the middle line, or the ones that are a little bit iffy, where they might be on their side, or there may be some sort of other interference with other targets. But yeah, I think it's all about the setup too. I think that's one of the things that I'm quite strong on is the default settings are there for a reason because all of the MindLab engineers and all of the pre-testers before this has been released, they feed into those. So if you're going, and I know MindLab have just put out a few other videos on the Manticore as well, and it's you don't want to go too far away from it. So what you want to do is try to set it up because there's one thing that we all have that's different, and it's our hearing. So, and
Mm.
it's how we want to respond. So, as Paul and I can will tell you that it's you're listening to that tone, and then the second thing you do is then look at the screen and go, yes, this is a good target.
Yeah,
Yeah,
correct.
very good. Well, a couple of takeaways. It's great little chat session there. We'll we'll finish up at part one. Stay tuned for part two. A couple of takeaways is a bigger coil will have a little bit more weight to it and a little bit more inherent noise. So just make sure you're playing around with those gain settings and adjusting the sensitivity of the thing to suit your environment. It's going to have great depth on the machine, and just take your time to learn the new coil and learn your machine, which will really give you the most out of it. Don't automatically think it's not working for you. You do need to put some hours behind it, like anything, to really get used to it. So thanks, gentlemen. We'll leave it here for part one. Stay tuned, people. Part two's coming soon.